about y'all, but I fully relate because I can be really mean to myself sometimes. And good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. I am currently on the way to work. I have a lot of energy for that to be the case because typically in the morning I'm like, don't talk to me. I'm listening to a podcast and it's talking about a topic that I got super excited about, and I was like, I need to tell somebody. And I was like, of course, let me just get on YouTube and tell y'all. So yeah, I want to tell y'all about what I just learned. I love learning new things from podcasts, specifically dealing with like psychology of the mind or like anything to just help me be a better human and develop and all that stuff. Well, before I get started though, let me call attention to the fact that I do not have a thumbnail because I popped it off. So yeah, I talk a lot with my hands, and so I was just like, let me go ahead and show that. So anyway, the topic is imposter syndrome. And also disclaimer, I am typically not a fan of that term. Not because I don't think it's real, but because I just think it's definitely like a buzzword, and people just like say it all the time, anytime, without really like assessing the situation. Like I feel like any dip in confidence, people are just like, imposter, you know what I mean? I guess I should give y'all a definition of what that is. So imposter syndrome is basically like feeling like if you just got a promotion or you just got a new job or whatever, feeling like you're not worthy or you don't deserve that job title, and like people are going to find out that like you don't know what you're talking about or that you're not qualified or whatever it may be. So yeah, there's other like, it goes deeper than that, but that's kind of like the broad scope of the definition. And so it's used a lot in higher ed. I work in higher ed, and like sometimes students would feel like they don't deserve to have this job, or like they don't know why we hired them, and you know, we'll talk about imposter syndrome and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, grown adults be feeling this way too. So it's not just like a teenager, young 20s type thing or whatever. The podcast I'm listening to is talking about imposter syndrome and saying how there's 5 different types of imposters. So this I did not know, so I was interested to hear it because I'm not gonna lie, this podcast episode came out in like November, and I listened to the podcast pretty frequently, but I skipped over this episode because I was like, I do not want to hear about this topic. But then they kept referencing this episode in later episodes, and I guess I should say the podcast. I was listening to the Love Hour. They kept referencing the episode, and then they mentioned how there were like 5 different types of imposters, and I was like, oh, that's what they're talking about. So I was like, all right, let me check it out, because maybe they'll put a different spin on it and it'll make me actually like embrace the word a little more. I don't remember all 5. I'm not even done with the podcast episode, to be honest with you, because after this last nugget they were saying, I was like, I need to get this out and talk about it. But I remember 4 of them, so I don't know, I'll write the 5th one on the screen. But the 5 different types of imposters are the soloist / individualist, the natural genius, the natural genius, the perfectionist, the expert, and whatever the 5th one is that I write down here. With this, what I'm about to talk about, they weren't even talking about a specific type of imposter. They were just like having like organic conversation or whatever. And the therapist who was on the show was talking about how we have an inner bully in our head, and like we always let that inner bully win, and we need to like question it and ask it questions to really get it to stop bullying us, right? Because bullies don't typically say positive things, and so our bully is literally beating us up in our head, right? I don't know about y'all, but I fully relate because I can be really mean to myself sometimes. And so he was saying how like when your inner bully starts talking to you, like start to question it like relentlessly. Like, who told you that? Like, what are the facts that support what you're saying to me? And a lot of the times, like, we don't have the facts, we just have the feelings to validate it. And one thing that I've definitely learned over the past year or so is that facts come before feelings, in terms of like logic. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, my feelings are always going to be valid, but that doesn't mean that they're true, you know? And so whenever I start feeling like I'm beating myself up, like if I just start questioning that bully, and it's like, who told you that you don't know what you're talking about? Like, who told you that you need to put your pressure on yourself to do X, Y, and Z, you know? And I think that could really help us to, like, change our perception on whatever it is that we're feeling at that time, you know? So, anyway, talking about that, and then they got on the topic of conversation about humility, which I was very intrigued because I feel like lately I have been trying to be more confident in myself in terms of like what I bring to the table, like what I'm good at, right? But I didn't want to ever make other people feel bad because I'm good at something. That probably sounds crazy, just even saying that, but that's legit how I felt. Like, I was like, I don't want to hype myself up at the expense of someone else's feelings. But like, in all reality, like, their feelings aren't my issue. Like, you know what I mean? And so he asked one of the hosts, like, what is your definition of humility? And she said, playing small and minimizing my accomplishments. And I was like, I can agree. Like, I feel like someone is being humble when, like, if I tell you good job and they're like, oh no, like, don't say that, like, all I did was X, Y, and Z. Like, to me, I'm like, oh, they're so humble, like, they're like not taking credit for what they did, right? But them doing that is also not acknowledging all of the work that they just put in for me to even compliment them. You know what I'm saying? And so the therapist, like, was like, wow, like, my definition has nothing to do with that. And he was like, my definition of humility is not making other people feel bad for your accomplishments. And I was like, what? What? And I know this might sound like common sense, or some of y'all might be like, duh, but I'm just like, that was such a game changer to me, because I really struggle with, like, saying I'm good at X, Y, and Z, but then, like, whoever I'm talking to, I don't want them to feel like I'm saying they're not good. And so he was like, he used the example of, like, playing basketball. First of all, side note, men always got to use a sports analogy. I've noticed that. So y'all pay attention. Whenever you're listening to something or watching something, if a guy's ever going to, like, make an analogy for something, they're going to use a sports reference, guaranteed. So he compared it to basketball, and he was like, if I go out in the game and I score 40 points and I'm talking about it afterwards, like, all I'm stating is the facts. Like, I scored 40 points. Like, that's what I'm talking about. And he was like, but it'd be different if I was like, I scored 40 points. What'd you do? Nothing? That's what I thought. Like, you're trash. Like, get like me. Get on my level. You need to practice more. Blah, blah, blah. Like, that's not being humble. Like, because you're making the other person feel bad for not being as good as you are. You know what I'm saying? But if I'm just literally stating facts, I scored 40 points, and then continuing to talk about that in a way that's, like, uplifting myself, like, that's still humility. And that just really blew my mind, because now I feel like I can, like, rewire my thinking in terms of, like, being more confident and not worrying about other people's feelings. Because if I'm just stating the facts about myself and I'm just hyping myself up and bragging about myself, but not being intentional and not making them feel bad, then if they do still feel bad, that's a them problem, you know? And so that just was really eye-opening for me, because there have been, like, over the years, I've really, like, honed in on, like, what my strengths are and stuff. And, like, one of my strengths is, like, I'm a really good communicator. Like, I have a really high emotional intelligence. Like, I pick up on cues really well. Like, I am really good about body language. Like, I'm really good with language and how I speak to people, and, like, how to, like, tailor my conversations to who I'm talking to. Like, all of those things. Like, I'm, like, I would say I'm above average when it comes to communicating with other people. And even saying all that felt a little weird, because I'm like, what if someone's, like, watching this thinking, like, oh, you think you're so good and blah, blah, blah. Like, there's people better than you, right? But it's just like, yeah, there are people better than me at communicating. But also, I know I'm above average than, like, a lot of other people as well. See, but now I'm like, does that sound like I'm putting other people down when I'm saying that? I don't know. Like, it's tough. Like, to say that I'm good at something, but not put other people down. I feel like it is a fact that I'm above average in that. I don't know how to comfortably say that, like without feeling like I'm making someone else feel bad. This is literally going to be rewiring, or maybe I'm missing the whole point of this and I should say it a different way. I don't know, but do y'all get what I'm saying? I don't know. Comment below, help me out. Like, what? How should I say it? I don't know. But he used another sports analogy. He used another example of like winning like gold medals and stuff. Like if someone wins the silver medal, which is like second place, then they would beat themselves up because they're like, dang, like I was this close to getting first. But the bronze medal winner, the third place winner, would be like, dang, I made it on the podium. Like I made it here in third place. Like look at all these other people that I beat. And like even when you look at the person who won the silver medal, like there's only one person who beat you. Look at all those other people who you beat. So like you're still good. So like don't beat yourself up about not being first when like you are right next to the first place person. Well, like right under, I guess, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I guess this is just a lesson in confidence and really learning how to brag about yourself and not let other people's thoughts or opinions about that stop you from doing that. I love stuff like this. I love just learning something that can just make me better. I just wanted to get out here real quick, rant about that. Comment below what you think about this topic. What is your definition of humility? Have you thought about what I said about like humility is just not making other people feel bad? Or did you think that it is